Good morning, everybody. It is a Monday, but does it feel like a Monday? Not so much. I am here today, and we're going to be doing an episode on finance. Obviously, finance is a big topic and a very important topic in these times because, everything in the world is changing day by day, and you need to make sure that you have your finances in order, whether it is for investing or for personal. So we're going to have Andrew Goodman on today, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in finance. So if you guys have any questions, be sure to put them in the comments, and we will bring those up and try and answer them as best as we can. So without further ado, we're going to bring Andrew on. Andrew is a certified financial planner at Barnum Financial Group, and he is going to give us a ton of information today. So, hey, Andrew, how's it going?
I'm doing great, Celia. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
No problem. I'm doing all right. I'm just, chugging along. I have my coffee that I have every day. Um,
There you go.
so, tell us a little bit about you, your background in finance, and a little bit about your business.
Yeah, sure. I'm a certified financial planner, as you said, with Barnum Financial Group. I have been in the business for about 6 years now, right out of college. And I really got into the business because, I was doing some volunteer work with actually the Alzheimer's Association at the time. And we would always get financial questions about people saying, how do I deal with the financial burdens of this? Or, if somebody would pass away, they didn't know what to do afterwards. There were so many questions that we would always get that were financial related. And I decided, I want to be the person that can help these people and really just help anybody who has, financial questions. As time went on, I'm a student of the business, so I seek to further my education in whatever way possible. So I got both my CLU, which is a certified life underwriter, and CFP designations. CFP is certified financial planner. And now I'm been doing this for a few years, and I love what I do. I'm able to help a lot of people. I'm able to give a lot of people advice, and it's right now it's definitely some tumultuous times, but I still love what I do.
So, yeah, as you mentioned, it's a whirlwind right now, to say
Yeah.
the least. There's no rule book, and I say that every day as to what is going on in the world and how people are handling it. So, would you be able to give me a little bit of insight of what happened right before coronavirus came, what happened when all of the news came out, and kind of where it went from there?
Yeah, so I personally have been telling my clients for a few years that 2020 was going to be, the year to watch, and that it was going to be a volatile year. The reasons for that, I mean, we're on a 12-year bull market, or we were on a 12-year bull market run. We had 2020 is obviously an election year, which always brings volatility, but this election, as I think most people have seen, is going to be unlike any other election, and that was before Corona. Just based on, you know, before Trump, people weren't really tweeting about elections or, they were, but they weren't following presidential tweets, daily like they are with Trump. And those tweets have such power and that correspond to what the market does. Because when you have somebody in power like Trump, who is so decisive in what he does, you know, and so once he decides he's going to do something, he announces it and makes sure everybody knows about it. The market's going to respond to that. So because of that, I knew that this was going to be a volatile year. Right up before coronavirus, obviously we were doing great. We had seen some volatility due to primaries and tension with China. Obviously, with the trade tariff war that's kind of been going on with them. But as soon as this coronavirus hit, the first drop was because of fear. When people don't know what to do or don't know what the future brings, obviously, they're afraid. And fear usually corresponds to people not wanting to be in the market. So people were pulling their money out of the market due to uncertainty surrounding, am I going to have a job? Am I going to be able to work? How am I going to pay my bills? So a lot of people pulled out of the market, or pulled a portion of their money out of the market, and that sell-off just triggered, further downfall. Then, as news regarding the coronavirus came out and businesses shut down totally, and we went into lockdown, obviously, that had a major effect on the stock market, and we've kind of just been trying to build back ever since. Luckily, as we've gotten some positive news regarding the coronavirus, such as more testing being done, more PPE supplies being given out, and starting to see the flattening of the curve. That's all corresponded positively with the market. So the market, we were in a pretty bad place when we kind of first had that initial drop, but we've come back up, not quite to where we were before, but we've started to come back up nicely, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity to be had.
So for people that aren't familiar with the market, like how do you actually make money in the market? Like what is the process of, obviously I know, so like investing and all of those types of things on a normal day?
Yeah. So, I mean, for the average person, there are a few different ways that you can invest. Some people like to be hands-on and they want to pick their specific companies that they like. My advice to them is usually, just don't just, buy all in on one company on one day because you like them. Do your research, maybe ask for professional advice. And also don't necessarily buy in on one day. A lot of people will try and time the market, which is very, very risky, because one of the biggest risks is market timing risk, not what you buy, but when you buy it. So what I usually will encourage people to do is what's called dollar cost averaging. What that is basically you invest the same amount for a predetermined period of time in intervals. So let's say you say, I want to invest 10 grand over a year. Maybe you put in, $800 a month for 12 months on the same day, so that you're getting, you're not only diversifying what you own, but you're diversifying the cost at which you get it at. The other way is, some people don't like being hands-on and they say, I have money, I want to be invested, but I don't really want to be the one actually doing it. And that's where somebody like me comes in, where they'll come to me, we'll sit down, we'll do a full fact finder, finding out what's important to them, what their goals are, what their level of comfortability is with risk, and figure out, what's a suitable portfolio or investment for them.
So with what you've been watching in the market, how much of a change has there been because of coronavirus? Like, are we talking like it's a normal day in the neighborhood, or did it drop? Did it go up? Where are we at now?
It's unlike anything we've ever seen. The Dow was close to 30,000 and dropped below 20,000. So, for that to happen in such a short period of time, essentially in a week, all of the gains since Trump has taken office were wiped out, which is, again, something that hasn't happened since, we haven't had a period of time that short that was that bad since, Black Monday back in the 80s, or, it's been absolutely crazy. Since that has happened, for example, if you bought in when that happened, you actually would have made money since then. So the market has been recovering from that. There is still a lot of volatility right now because we don't know, what's exactly is going to happen with coronavirus, or, how long, this lockdown or quarantine is going to last. So that's obviously going to affect businesses, and as time goes on, will become more challenging. But right now, we are showing signs that we are recovering. And, I think once we kind of get past this, we can expect that to continue.
I know that there are very significant, dates in history that go along with, like, obviously, like a crash in the market or something like that. Obviously, coronavirus or COVID-19 or whatever it's going to be remembered by is going to be one of those, because it was such a plunge so quickly, and a lot of people lost money. A lot of people have the potential to make money in this situation. So in terms of like how people would make decisions, like is there a certain way that like they should go about like learning about stocks? Because I know that there's a ton of information out there and there's a ton of different media sources talking about certain things. Is there a certain place that they should look or person that they should talk to?
Yeah. So for the first thing that a person has to decide is, am I comfortable with risk? You know, for people, especially our age, we haven't really seen a down market that has affected us. In 2008, when the market was down, you know, personally, I'm 28, so at that time I was 16. Um, you know, obviously, you know, working at the catering hall I was working at, I wasn't particularly affected by, you know, people losing 40% in their 401ks because I was young at the time. Now, and so since then, people our age have kind of taken the market for granted, I think, seeing that, you know what, I can put money in and I'm going to make 20% or I'm going to make 10%. And they just don't really understand uh, the risk associated with it. I think now that people have seen loss and maybe some people have lost money, they understand a little bit more that, hey, it's not all, you know, it's not all roses. There are, you know, there's some weeds in there too. So I think the first thing a person has to do is establish, you know, their comfort level with risk. You know, if you're investing $1,000, you should be comfortable losing that $1,000, because just as easily as you can make money, you can lose it. The other thing is, you know, obviously make sure that you're not investing everything that you have. You always have to have an emergency fund for times exactly like this. You know, some people are out of work. A lot of people lost jobs and are surviving on their emergency funds right now. So before even thinking about investing, you have to make sure that, you know, the rule of thumb is if you're a two-income household, make sure you have 3 months savings. And if you're a single-income household, make sure you have at least 6. Once you get past that, then I would say the best thing to do is speak to a professional to get professional advice and figure out what type of investment is proper for you. I've told, you know, I've turned clients away because I don't think they were particularly ready to invest, or that they may have not been ready for what I was offering them. But I think you need to have that conversation with a professional to get their opinion. And when you do, definitely seek out somebody who is a fiduciary. A lot of people call themselves a financial advisor, a financial planner. Anybody that is a CFP is a certified fiduciary, meaning that they have the same legal obligation to you as an attorney or an accountant. So if they give you a recommendation, you could hold them to it, because if it's not in your best interest, they're liable for that. But, you know, don't make decisions by yourself. Do your research, seek professional advice, and those are really the steps to even start thinking about investing. And then once you get into it, you know, it's different for everybody.
Yeah, I know that my family, at least my grandparents, are heavy investors, and I know that my grandpa is more conservative and my grandma is a lot more, how do I say it? She watches Kramer every day and, you know, is on speed dial with her financial advisor. So you have to kind of figure out, I guess on your side, the comfortability of your client, but on the client end, you have to figure out how much of a risk and how closely you want to watch the market. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I have clients who, you know, will literally check their account daily. I strongly advise against that. You will go insane. Because, you know, the biggest reason that I encourage people to work with a professional is we take emotion out of it. So when you look at, you know, the history of the market, for example, you know, if we take a look at the S&P 500, you could pretty much see since 1970, 1980, we've averaged about 10%. The average investor only averaged about 2.5% to 3%. And the reason for that is emotion. You know, the people that lost money recently are the people that, because of the coronavirus, when they saw that market drop, they sold what they had because they were afraid of losing it. The people who stayed in are doing a lot better and have recouped a good amount of that money. Same thing happened in 2008. The people that lost money were the people that, when they saw their accounts were down, sold because they were scared. The people who stayed in the market in 2008 were up 200%, after that. So it's definitely that's why I strongly advise people to work with a professional. Is we take the emotion out of it. We're not working, we're thinking about everything logically. We're doing the research. We're taking a look at all the alternatives, and we're not just responding to a headline or responding to what we see on the news or a friend's advice. And because of that, we're able to make sounder decisions, and we're able to stick to a strategy or stick to a plan, which winds up being better in the long run.
Well said. Yeah. Oh wow, I need to drink more of my drink. But I think you make a really good point with that comment over there. So with working with a professional and working with a financial advisor, what benefit do you think people have other than like hopping onto, like, I know that there's a bunch of different apps that you can hop on and look at what's happening and make your decisions like at the touch of your fingertip. What benefits would someone have by working with like someone like you to make those decisions?
So it's a difference in preference, to be honest. Some people are fine with working with a robo advisor. Vanguard is great. Fidelity is great. Some people take a much more passive approach to their investments, and there's nothing wrong with that. A lot of people like to be a lot more hands-on, or like a lot more customization and personalization. So the advantage of working with somebody like me is, one, I work with a team of experts. I have a vice president of risk management, a vice president of financial planning, a vice president of insurance planning. I have a JD on my team, a CPA on my team. So you're not just getting advice from me; you're getting advice from, my team of experts. I think that's very important, because no single person can know everything. No single person can be an expert at everything. But when you assemble a team of people working towards a common goal, each with an area of expertise, you're ultimately going to wind up with a much better result. Aside from that, the benefit of working with somebody like me is I do have experience, and I do have the knowledge. The CFP letters next to my name aren't just letters. You have to go through a pretty rigorous curriculum to get that. It's 10 master's level classes followed by a 7-hour exam. And being a CFP shows a level of accreditation. Beyond that, the resources that I have behind me with my firm, my firm goes above and beyond in providing the best. We try to provide the best overall client experience. And that's what we really focus on, because the same stock that I could pitch you, or the same insurance policy that I could pitch you, so can somebody else. But the relationship that I have with my clients, every one of my clients has my cell phone number. I've had clients come to my house before for parties. I've gone to clients' birthdays and retirements. I send my clients birthday cards. I speak to them on, some of them I speak to on the phone weekly. And it's that relationship that I build with my clients that really differentiates me, because I want to make sure that they're always making informed decisions, and I care about my clients. So it's the matter of, do you want to work with a 1-800 number that you have to call, wait on hold, and speak to somebody who may not even be in this country? Or would you rather sit down with somebody who you know personally, establish that relationship, establish that level of trust, and work with not only them, but the team and the infrastructure they have behind them? And that's where somebody like me brings value.
I think you make a really good point, because having that level of communication and someone knowing you personally is really going to make a difference. Because obviously, if for instance we're working together and in 10 years I need to make a financial decision, that's 10 years of back history that about me, that you can help me make that informed decision. And I think that that's awesome. And I think that kind of relationship in any business is extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, I've been working with some of my clients. I got into the business when I was 22, and some of my clients, I've been working with since then.
Mhm.
I've seen that grow. They've seen me grow. When I first started, I was living with my parents, and
Uh-huh.
now I have my own house. And my parent, some of my clients celebrated that with me because I wouldn't be here without them. I have clients who I've seen their children grow up at this point already. When I first started working with one of my favorite clients, his girls were 2 and a newborn, and uh, now they're 6, 5, and another one is 3. So it's crazy. You see people's lives change, and again, you build that rapport with them. You build that level of trust and that level of comfort, and it's totally different than working with a robo advisor or somebody that you're never actually going to see, um, because eventually you become friends and even family at that point.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. So, if someone's looking for a financial advisor, what should they be looking for, I guess, in that advisor and in that relationship?
So always make sure that the advisor you're working with is a fiduciary. Again, they have a legal obligation to you, so whatever they're recommending you, you can hold them to it. Um, if an advisor is not a fiduciary and they make a recommendation that's not in your best interest, but you followed it, there's not much you can do about it. With an advisor who is a fiduciary, again, you can hold them to everything that they say, and where they're also held to higher, stricter guidelines. Beyond that, talk to a few different advisors. Not every advisor is right for every client. I've some clients I've sat down with and we just decided it wasn't a good fit. Not because we didn't like each other, but just based on their situation, um, or based on what they were looking for, I couldn't provide that to them. So definitely talk to a few advisors, and also I'd say the main thing is the first time that you sit down with an advisor, if they bring up a product, they're not the advisor for you. When you first sit down with the advisor, all that you should be doing is getting to know each other. That advisor should be doing everything possible to find out, you know, your history, your goals, your dreams, your worries, your concerns, your current financial situation, where you see yourself in the future. They should be trying to find out everything about you, and making a recommendation takes time. There's definitely a process that a good advisor will go through. They're going to gather your information. They're going to take that back, analyze it, go over it with their team, and then come back and present a recommendation. So anybody who is bringing up any product or uh, trying to sell you anything on the first meeting is definitely not somebody you should be seeking advice from.
That's great to know because I know that there are a lot of people out there that likely have ended up in that situation and they went with the person anyway and they got stuck with whatever that product was because they were like, oh, this guy, he knew right away what I needed. But really, doing that research and doing that, I guess, information gathering is probably the most important part of, working with someone.
Yeah, I mean, when I try and find out about my clients, I want they're entrusting me with basically their lifetime earnings. They're trusting me to make sure that they can retire comfortably, they can protect their family, they can support their family. So I'm going to give them the same level of respect in making sure that I know their situation. I need to know I want to know their situation. I want to make sure all the information is accurate. I want to make sure there's no mistakes because there's no room for mistakes. When you're dealing with somebody's life, um, and I go down even to the nitty gritty. I like to know my clients' dogs. I like to know their names. I like to know what sports teams they like. I like to know. Do they like to fish? Do they like to, do they like cars? I want to know whatever about a client that I can, because the more personal of a relationship I have with that client, the stronger the level of trust is, and the stronger the level of trust is, the more I'm able to keep them on track, and the more I'm able to keep them following the plan that we put in place and the strategies that we put in place.
Definitely. I feel like I said, that's a great practice for any business. And it's really great that you get that that far into like getting to know someone, because sometimes people will just be like, oh, this guy, he likes this, whatever, that's the end of it. So like if you know someone has a certain interest, you can make certain recommendations based off that, which is awesome. But what I want to talk about real quick is opportunity. What kind of
Yeah.
opportunities do people have right now in terms of everything? Like not everything, but like what in terms of what's going on in the financial world right now? What kind of opportunities have presented themselves?
Yeah, so there is definitely opportunity in the market right now, and there has been since we kind of had that drop off. It's obviously risky, and people need to understand the risk associated with it. But whenever there's a major drop off like that, it's basic market mentality: buy low, sell high. So even if we don't know exactly where the bottom is, personally, I think we hit it already. Um, but you definitely don't when things are good, people are happy and encouraged to buy in. And when things are like they are now, they're kind of, deterred. But there is definitely some opportunity right now. If you are thinking about investing, you should definitely speak to a professional first. But there is opportunity to be had right now because it's like buying things at a discount. Ultimately, these big businesses will rebound. Certain businesses have thrived in this pandemic world, like Amazon and Netflix. Um, so there is some opportunity to be had. There's also opportunity for people looking for insurance, as a lot of insurance carriers are changing their underwriting requirements to make it easier for people to get insurance. Since right now, a lot of people are thinking about their mortality, and unfortunately, we're not able to, get medical examiners out in the field and things like that. So um, there's some opportunity for people there as well in obtaining insurance easier.
So speaking of insurance, that you make a really good point, because maybe people didn't have insurance before this. What I don't even know how to ask the question. What do you think? Like, tell me a little bit more about insurance. That's what I'm trying to do, but I'm trying to like
Yeah,
put in with the whole coronavirus.
yeah, sure.
Awkward with asking
So
questions.
being in the industry, I have a decent amount of insurance on myself, and I don't have a wife, I don't have kids. And my friends ask me, why do you have so much insurance on myself? And for me, I have a mortgage that if something happens to me, I want that to be paid off, my parents to be able to, just take the house. And I also need to have, I look in the future and say, I have goals and I want to leave a legacy for future generations. And I also want to make sure my parents are taken care of. So, I have a decent amount of insurance, but people are, especially our age, don't particularly think about that because they're not thinking about mortality yet. They're not thinking, you're invulnerable until you're not. Um, I didn't really think about it again until I bought the house and had responsibilities. But I think now, pretty much anybody, especially in New York, where if you go on Facebook and you go through your news feed, you know somebody that has lost somebody, to coronavirus that probably wasn't expecting it. I have friends my age who have lost parents. I know people slightly older than me who have passed away. Um, so it's definitely scary, and people don't necessarily think about. Uh, Obviously people don't want to think about death. It's a morbid topic, but it's definitely something that you need to be prepared for. And I think right now people are starting to think about things like life insurance a lot more because they realize, life isn't so certain, and I do want to make sure that my loved ones or my goals are accomplished if I'm not here.
When do you think is a good time for people to start getting into life insurance plans and like looking into this? Because I know people of all different ages that are like, oh, I probably should do this. I know I personally looked into it last year.
So there's no perfect age. I'd say do it younger when you're healthy and young because when it is cost does excuse me cost is based on age and your health. So if you're young and healthy, you don't know, you can say, yeah, I'm going to get insurance when I get kids. You don't know what type of health you're going to be in at that time, or if something happens to you, you may not be insurable at all. So it's definitely better to get it younger. When it's cheap, you can get a whole bunch of it for not a lot of money, and then you have it for later on. There's also the savings aspect to it, where I personally use my life insurance policy as not just life insurance, but also as an investment. Um, I have and because of that, the earlier you start, the quicker you're going to accumulate value inside that policy. Beyond that, I would say, I think anybody who is a parent kind of has an obligation to have life insurance. Obviously, there's no law that says that, but that's kind of how I feel and how I discuss it with my clients once they do have kids. Because I think, once you're a parent, you have an obligation to support that child. And if you're not there anymore, you need to make sure that child is supported, and yours, or your spouse, or, anybody else that you're taking care of.
That makes a lot of sense. I know that with the process, I had to do a blood test, and they had to run it and make sure that I was in good health, which I have a fear of needles. So I was just like, do I have to do this? Do I have to do the blood test? But it definitely really put everything into perspective when I looked into this, because what happens if I, got hit by a bus tomorrow? Like, what happens if I got something like coronavirus and I didn't react to it well? There are all these what ifs. I'm not trying to make the conversation super heavy, but you really need to take a second and consider this, because it's a reality of life. Everyone dies. So.
Yeah. It definitely is, it is scary. Again, I don't like to focus on it too much because it is kind of morbid, but it is important. And again, right now, or as within the past year or so, I'd say there's been kind of a trend in the industry towards easing underwriting, where a lot of companies won't even require a medical exam anymore. But especially right now, where, it's impossible to even do them in some areas. Insurers are really working to make it easier for people to get insurance, because they know people are thinking about it right now, and they want to make it accessible.
I'm here. I promise. I hit the wrong button. I'm here. Hello. I'm like driving this webcast as we're going. So in addition to obviously like the life insurance and the investing, and I know that one of the reasons I did life insurance was, God forbid something happened to me in my old age, I would be able to take some money that accrued there and solve a problem. But what other things would you recommend people looking at in their own finances right now? Because I know that everyone's either strapped for money, they're working from home, and luckily they're making their money, or they're on unemployment right now. So everyone has, like, I would say, a budget that they need to keep on. What would you recommend for people to look at within their own finances right now?
Yeah. So now, I think right now, I've been encouraging people to, right now we're all stuck at home. Take the time to look at your finances now. On average, people will spend more time a year planning a vacation or looking in their refrigerator than looking at their finances. And right now it's a good time to take a step back, look at your budget, look at what you're spending, and look at what's coming in, and making sure that you're spending less than what's coming in. On top of that, it's a great time to if you don't have a budget, maybe start putting one in place, especially if money is tight right now. And also, it's important for people to look at the relief programs that are out there right now. Obviously, people know about the stimulus check, but there are a lot of low interest rate loans that are available out there. The government does have some other relief programs that they have rolled out. For example, a lot of people don't know that if you're able to actually not pay your life insurance for the next 3 months, and actually pay it make up those 3 months payments over the next 12 months, as a way to kind of ease things for people right now, because expenses are being people's expenses are high and their income might be lower. A lot of car insurance companies are returning money to clients because they're not driving. So, people can look into things like that. There's definitely a lot of programs out there where people are, both the government and organizations are trying to help, everyday people because times are rough right now. So just look into, if you've never been on a government website, go look at what is being offered to us and some of these rules that are being established because they do affect us. Something a lot of people also don't know. For example, that required minimum distributions are waived this year. Obviously the tax deadline was extended, so there's a lot of different there's a lot of different things that people need to be aware of surrounding their finances, but also make sure that you're informed about everything that's happening.
Yeah, I feel like there is like a 50-50 on this information getting to people. So I'm glad that you brought those things up because I know a lot of people are like, oh, I heard about this one thing, but it doesn't apply to me. But that doesn't mean that there's not something else out there that will apply to you. So definitely check out the government websites. I know that we're both in New York, but if you're watching from somewhere else, check your state's guidelines and what they're doing for you guys. With what I just said, obviously, like information getting to people is one of the biggest things. But do you think that like the information that's reaching people through the media is actually affecting the market? Like, do you think that? Mhm.
Absolutely. I mean, the things that you hear on the media is you hear about, the 300-400 point swings that the market is making, but you don't hear about, unless you're watching a financial program, you don't hear that RMDs are being waived this year. You don't hear that there are certain, loan rules that are changing for people's 401ks and IRAs. You don't hear about life insurance payments being deferred. You don't hear about, a lot of these relief programs or things that are being done to make people's lives easier. You hear about what's going to make a good headline. And again, people act on emotion. So when they're hearing the market's going crazy, they're afraid and they pull out, and that affects the market. When they hear that things are great, that affects the market as well. So definitely be aware. That's why I say it's better to work with a professional. For me personally, as these different tidbits of information come out, I share those with my clients. That's not something you're going to get from a robo advisor. That's not something you're going to particularly hear from the news. And it's important to know about these things because they can make, pretty substantial, or they can affect you pretty substantially.
Yeah, I think not just the financial industry, but most industries are kind of at the hands of what the news is doing right now, because I actually worked in the news and I'm familiar on how they make their headlines and how they decide what is getting reported on. And it's usually, at least where I was, it was more centered, and it was a lot of headlines, and because it was the radio. But I know that they're looking for something that's going to pull someone in. They're looking for something that people are going to stop what they're doing, stop what they're scrolling to actually look. But that's not always the positive things or the helpful things. It's a lot of, for instance, like death tolls. If you see something that says death toll, people are going to be like, oh no, let me stop at this. But you're not seeing people surviving. You don't see the recovery like number. Like, these are the types of things that you need to keep in mind when you're looking at Facebook, or if you're looking at some sort of news source. You got to make sure that you're getting your information from a reliable source, if that makes sense. Because, Aunt Susan, that's posting something on Facebook may not be the one that knows the most about this, unless your Aunt Susan works for the like CDC or something.
Yeah. And the other thing too is, no one news source is going to give you all the information you need. You need to, look around, look from different political perspectives, speak to professionals, and just, for lack of a better term, don't be a sheep.
Mm-hmm.
Think about why a headline is telling you to think that way. Don't just react to it. Because that's really the way that you have to think when you're thinking about your finances.
That makes a lot of sense, because if you're just following what everyone else is doing or following what the news says to do, you're not going to be making informed investments.
Yeah, I can't stress enough. Every person's situation is different, and that's why again, every person needs a plan, and every person's plan is going to be different. So taking that time to sit down with somebody and actually establish a plan, um, is very important. But again, I can't stress enough how every person's situation is different. So you can't just don't follow a cookie cutter, or don't just follow what your friend is doing, because it may not be right for you, or there's a good chance that it's not.
Mm-hmm. So I know we've talked a little bit about past, a little bit about present, but I know that you don't have a crystal ball, but what are a couple of ideas as to where you think that the market might go in the next couple of months?
Mm-hmm. So again, I can't give any particular recommendations, but I think I think as long as this pandemic is surrounding us, we're still going to have a lot of volatility. That's going to depend on death toll. It's going to depend on testing. It's going to depend on for all we know, this virus can mutate, and we have a whole other problem. Once this goes away, I think we're gonna respond more to the regular political volatility that's going to surround the election. And then I think it's kind of a wait and see to see what happens after this election. Depending on who is the president is going to have a major toll on the market. But I think in the long run, looking past the political stuff, as businesses start to reopen and as life starts to go back to normal, you're going to see the market respond positively to that. So, as restaurants open, as, sporting events start happening again, as concerts start happening again, as parties start happening again, as people start going out more and returning to their normal life and spending, the market's going to respond positively to that.
Well, I mean, it can't go too much lower, so hopefully it goes up high.
Oh no, there's plenty of room for it to drop, but again, I think we've kind of seen the worst, and that again, as life kind of normalizes, we'll start to see the market respond to that.
Gotcha. So, do you have any other words of wisdom in the financial world that you would like to share before we start wrapping up?
Just stay informed. Seek advice from a professional. Again, remember that every person's situation is different, so that whoever you're working with is figuring out what's right for you, not what's right for your friend, not what's right for their last client, not what's right for the next client, but what's right for you. And other than that, again, just don't respond. Think before you respond to your emotions, because they can impact you negatively. And just again, just seek advice. Advice is usually free, and the best the best thing you can get is professional advice when it comes to your finances.
That makes a lot of sense. Those are great words. So, if people want to, get a hold of you, what is the best way for them to find you and, reach out?
So they can email me. They can call me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. You can find me both. You can find me on there, and just feel free to reach out. I'm always, I always answer my phone. I always respond to my emails. All you gotta do is reach out.
And I have all of that information down in the description below the video. So if you guys want to reach out to Andrew, you guys can, send him an email, I can't talk today. Send him a direct message on Facebook and connect. And hopefully, there will be a good relationship there where you can maybe get to know Andrew, and maybe he'll make your recommendations in the future. You never know. But thank you so much for coming on. You had so much valuable information, especially for someone who knew about the financial market and things along those lines, like me. But I learned so much more. And I know that if someone's not familiar, they got a whole crash course today.
Thank you for having me. It was great.
No problem. I'm going to have you pop off of here so I could do the closing. But if you hang out for a second, I will thank you in person or in video right after.
Yeah, no problem.
All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in today. I know we learned a lot about finances, which is amazing. I know that, the stock market or insurance and things like that can be really confusing and kind of scary for people. But having someone like a financial planner or a financial advisor to discuss things with, to get information, and to figure out what's right for you is super important. So if you guys have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Andrew. Feel free to reach out to Advisors by You, because it is very important for you to be able to take care of yourself in a financial situation. So if you guys enjoyed this video, be sure to follow the Celia Werner Productions page here on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever you're listening to this, because we're on SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts. Hopefully soon Spotify podcasts, working on that one. But any likes and comments and shares are much appreciated. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day. I hope you guys learned a lot, and I will see you guys tomorrow.